They found me on March 7th, 2009, 11 miles from where I vanished. I was barefoot, wearing clothes that weren't mine, and I couldn't speak for 3 days. The search and rescue team said I looked healthier than I should have after 3 years in the wilderness. My hair was longer, yes, but braided. My skin was clean. I had no frostbite despite it being late winter. The lead investigator kept asking who helped me, where I'd been staying, but I just shook my head. How do you tell people that something they don't believe in saved your life? That the monster from campfire stories kept you warm through 36 winters, found you food, protected you from things far more dangerous than itself? Before we continue, comment below where in the world you are watching from, and please click like and subscribe for more Bigfoot stories. My name is Sarah Elizabeth Cartwright, and I disappeared on June 14th, 2006. I was 29 years old, a botanical researcher working on a grant studying fungal networks in old-growth forests. The project was based out of a field station in the Cascade Range, about 40 miles from the nearest town. I'd been there for 2 months, living in a cabin with 2 other researchers, taking soil samples and documenting mycorrhizal relationships. Exciting for mycology nerds, boring for everyone else. My family thought I was wasting my doctorate on mushrooms. My ex-boyfriend thought I was running away from reality. Maybe they were both right. The day I vanished started like any other. I woke up at 5:30, made instant coffee on the camping stove because the cabin's electricity was temperamental, and checked my sample sites on the topographic map. I was working a grid system, moving systematically through the forest quadrant by quadrant. That day's target was section 7C, about a 2-hour hike northeast of base camp. I left a note on the kitchen table like always. Estimated return, 4 p.m. Carried my standard pack. GPS unit, water, granola bars, sample bags, hand trowel, field notebook, emergency whistle, first aid kit. I'd done this walk 50 times before. The forest that morning was perfect. June in the Cascades, everything impossibly green. Douglas firs rising like cathedral columns. The understory thick with sword ferns and Oregon grape. The air smelled like Douglas fir resin and damp earth. I loved that smell. Still do, though now it carries different memories. I was completely alone, which was normal. The study area was remote enough that we rarely encountered hikers. I saw a black bear once, gave it space, no problem. Heard elk bugling during mating season. Found cougar tracks a few times, but never saw the cat. It felt safe in that dangerous way the wilderness always does, where you respect the risk, but trust your preparation. I reached section 7C around 9:15, found the marker stake I'd planted on my last visit, and started my sampling protocol. Dig down 6 inches, collect soil, label the bag, record GPS coordinates and environmental conditions. Temperature, humidity, canopy cover percentage. I was on my 4th sample when I noticed the silence. Not gradual, sudden. One moment the forest was alive with birdsong and insect hum. The next it was dead quiet. Every naturalist knows that silence. It means predator, big predator. I stood slowly, left my trowel in the dirt, and scanned the tree line. Nothing, but the silence held. My heart started that heavy thud you get when your body knows something your mind hasn't processed. I reached for the bear spray on my hip, flicked off the safety. Then I smelled it. Not bear, not cougar, something else. Musky and wild, but wrong somehow. Too strong, too present, like standing downwind from a zoo enclosure. I backed toward a cluster of boulders, trying to get something solid behind me. That's when the tree line moved. Not wind, not an animal pushing through. The tree line itself shifted, and I realized what I was looking at wasn't trees. It was standing there, 8 feet tall, maybe more, covered in dark brown hair, matted and thick. Shoulders broader than any human, broader than reasonable. Arms too long, face too flat. Eyes that caught the filtered sunlight and reflected it back amber. I want to tell you I screamed or ran, but I didn't. I just stood there, bear spray raised, completely frozen. Every rational part of my brain said, "This isn't real. Bigfoot isn't real. You're hallucinating. Dehydration maybe," but I'd drunk half my water already. The thing was absolutely undeniably there. Solid, breathing, watching me with what I can only describe as curiosity. We stood like that for maybe 30 seconds. Felt like hours. Then it made a sound. Low, rumbling, like a voice pitched below human range. Not aggressive, almost questioning. It took one step forward. I took one step back. My heel caught on a root, and I went down hard, cracked my head on one of the boulders. The last thing I remember clearly was the sky spinning, the smell of crushed ferns, and the sound of something large moving toward me very, very fast. I woke up in darkness, and my first thought was, I'm in a cave. The air was cool and still, smelled like stone and something organic. Animal. My head throbbed where I'd hit it. When I tried to sit up, my vision swam. I felt around carefully. I was lying on something soft, not dirt. Moss, I realized. Thick moss piled deliberately. Beneath me, more moss. Around me, what felt like woven branches. A bed. Someone had made a bed. My pack was beside me. I fumbled for my headlamp, clicked it on, and immediately wished I hadn't. The cave was bigger than I expected, ceiling maybe 12 feet high, stretching back into darkness. And I wasn't alone. It was sitting against the far wall, watching me. In the headlamp beam, its eyes reflected green. It didn't move, didn't vocalize, just sat there, massive and impossible. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But I was also a scientist, and even scared out of my mind, part of my brain was cataloging details. Bipedal, clearly primate adjacent. Hair coverage complete except palms and face. Face more human than gorilla, but not human. Brow ridge pronounced. Nose broad and flat. Mouth wide. Teeth visible when it breathed through its mouth. Flat molars. Omnivore or herbivore, not carnivore. That detail mattered. I held on to it. My voice came out cracked. Where am I? No response. It tilted its head slightly. I tried again. Did you bring me here? Still nothing. Then it stood up, and I understood scale for the first time. 8.5 feet, maybe 9, easily 600 pounds. It moved to the cave entrance, which I could now see was covered with branches, deliberately placed. Camouflage. It pulled some aside, looked back at me, made that low rumbling sound again. Then it left. I sat in the moss bed, shaking, trying to process. I checked my watch. 7 p.m. I'd been unconscious for almost 10 hours. My head wound had stopped bleeding but felt swollen. Possible concussion. I inventoried my pack. Everything was there. GPS unit, water, food. I clicked on the GPS. No signal. The cave walls were too thick, or we were too deep. I tried anyway, watching the screen search uselessly for satellites. The rational options were limited. I could try to leave. Find my way back to the field station, but it was getting dark. I probably had a concussion, and I had no idea which direction to walk. I could wait until morning, hope the creature didn't come back to kill me. Or I could accept what was happening. Something had pulled me out of the forest, brought me here, made me a bed. Something that could have snapped my neck but chose to make me comfortable instead. I waited, drank water, ate a granola bar because my stomach hurt from hunger and fear mixed together. Tried the GPS every 10 minutes. Nothing. Around 9 p.m., I heard movement outside the cave. The branches shifted and it came back in. It was carrying something, an armful of plants, fiddlehead ferns. I recognized them immediately. Early summer delicacy, wild onions, miner's lettuce. It set them down near the entrance, looked at me, rumbled again. Then it moved to its spot against the wall and sat down. We watched each other across the cave. I held my headlamp beam on it, studying. It didn't seem bothered by the light. Its face was expressive. I could see thought behind those eyes. Problem solving. It had brought me food, edible plants. That required knowledge, understanding of what humans could eat, or what it ate, assuming similar digestive systems. I was running scenarios, parallel evolution, unknown primate species, Gigantopithecus remnant population. None of it made sense, but the thing sitting across from me made less sense, so I had to try. I spoke to it, thanked it for the food. My voice sounded absurd in the cave, high and thin against its bulk. It watched me talk. When I finished, it made a different sound, softer, almost like it was responding. I tried again, asked its name. If it had a name, it stared. I felt stupid. Then it did something that changed everything. It reached out one massive hand and tapped its chest. Once, deliberate, then pointed at me. I understood, or thought I did. I tapped my chest. "Sarah," I said. "Sarah." It rumbled, not repeating the word, but acknowledging. Then it tapped its own chest again and made a sound. Low, rhythmic. Karum, not a word, maybe not even a name. But it was offering something. Identity. I tried to mimic the sound. Failed. Tried again. It made the sound slower. I got closer. Good enough, apparently, because it settled back against the wall, seeming satisfied. That first night I didn't sleep. I dozed a little, jerking awake every time it shifted position. But it never approached me, never threatened. Just sat there, breathing slow and steady. Sometimes it would make quiet sounds, almost like it was talking to itself, processing something. Around 3 a.m., I heard other sounds outside the cave. Howling, wolves probably, or coyotes. The creature's head lifted, listening. It stood up, moved to the entrance, and made a sound I'd never heard before. Loud, deeper than thunder. A roar and a bellow mixed together. The howling stopped immediately. It came back inside, settled down, and the forest stayed silent for the rest of the night. Morning light filtered through the branches at the cave entrance. I woke up surprised I'd slept at all. My headache was worse, definitely concussed. I needed to get back to the field station, get medical attention. I tried the GPS again. Still nothing. I stood up carefully, fighting dizziness, and moved toward the entrance. The creature was already awake, sitting near the opening. When I approached, it stood up, blocking the way. Not aggressive, protective. It made a negative sound, short grunt. No. I stopped, tried to explain. "I need to go back. My friends will be worried. I'm hurt." I gestured to my head. It looked at the wound, leaned closer. I froze. Its face was inches from mine. I could smell its breath. Herbivorous, definitely herbivorous. It reached out slowly, carefully, and touched near the wound with one finger. Gentle, impossibly gentle for something that size. Then it made that negative sound again and settled back in front of the entrance. I was a prisoner, comfortable, unhurt, but a prisoner. I sat back down on the moss bed and tried to think. Why would it keep me here? Loneliness? Curiosity? Did it think it was protecting me? From what? I remembered the wolves, the absolute authority in its voice when it drove them off. Maybe it did think this was safer. Maybe it was right. I was concussed, alone, miles from help. If I wandered into the forest, I might never find my way back. Days became routine faster than I expected. The creature left every morning, always covering the entrance behind it. It brought food, berries, roots, fern shoots, mushrooms, all edible. I checked every item against my field knowledge. Never once did it bring anything poisonous. It brought water too, somehow. I never saw a container, but its hands would be cupped, dripping, and it would gesture for me to drink from them. I did. The water was cold and clean. Spring water, probably. I talked to it constantly, narrated everything I did, explained my research, my life, why I was in the forest. It would sit and listen, those amber eyes fixed on me. Sometimes it would make sounds back. I started recognizing patterns, certain rumbles for yes, others for no, a specific grunt for danger, a softer sound for approval or comfort. We were developing language, primitive, limited, but real. 2 weeks in, I tried to leave again, waited until it left for its daily foraging, pushed aside the branches, and ran. Made it maybe 200 yards before I heard it crashing through the forest behind me. It caught up easily, didn't hurt me, just picked me up and carried me back to the cave. I fought the whole way, screamed and hit and kicked, useless, like fighting a boulder. It set me down inside, made that negative sound, firmer this time, and I broke down crying. It sat next to me, not touching, just present, made soft sounds, almost crooning. When I finally stopped crying, it offered me berries. I took them, ate, felt pathetic and grateful at the same time. That night, it brought fresh moss for the bed, arranged it carefully. I watched its hands work, precise despite their size, built for gathering, not hunting. I thought about gorillas, gentle giants unless threatened. Maybe this was the same. Maybe I wasn't in danger. Maybe I was just lost. The concussion healed slowly. Headaches faded over a month. By then, I'd stopped trying to escape. Not because I accepted captivity, but because I'd started understanding the forest through its eyes. It took me out sometimes, always keeping me close. Showed me things. A bee tree dripping with honey, a patch of ramps growing in the shade, a creek with clean water and crayfish. It was teaching me, showing me how to survive here. I named it Croom, the closest I could get to that sound it made. It seemed to accept that. Started responding to the name. I taught it my name. Spent hours repeating Sarah slowly. One day, 3 months in, it made a sound that was close. Sahra. Not perfect, but intentional. I cried again. Communication. Real communication. Summer turned to fall. The forest changed colors. Croom brought different foods. Acorns, which it showed me how to leach the tannins from. Pine nuts. Mushrooms that I verified were edible. My clothes were wearing out. My boots had holes. Croom noticed. One morning, it brought me animal hide. Deer, looked like, already scraped clean. It gestured to my feet. I understood. It was making me shoes. I watched it work that day, using stones to cut the hide, teeth to tear precise strips, hands to braid cordage from plant fibers. It made me moccasins, crude but functional, waterproof, warm. I put them on and they fit. It had measured my feet somehow, remembered the size. The intelligence required for that struck me hard. This wasn't an animal acting on instinct. This was a person, non-human, but a person. Winter came brutal that year. Snow piled 6 feet deep outside the cave. Temperatures dropped below zero. Croom lined the cave walls with pine boughs, packed moss into the cracks, created insulation. It brought firewood, though I never saw it make fire. Turned out I didn't need fire. Its body heat was enough. On the coldest nights, it would sleep closer to me. Never touching without permission, but close enough that warmth radiated over. I stopped shivering. I got sick in January. Fever, chills, probably influenza. I was delirious for days. Croom brought water constantly, kept me hydrated, brought plants I didn't recognize, but that seemed to help. Willow bark for fever, something that tasted like licorice for cough. When I was at my worst, burning up and hallucinating, it did something I'll never forget. It left the cave for hours, came back with snow packed in its hands, shaped into balls, ice packs. It placed them carefully on my forehead, my neck, my wrists, changed them when they melted, sat up all night keeping me cool. I survived, came out of the fever weak but alive. The first clear thought I had was this thing saved my life. Not once, repeatedly. The fall from the boulder, the wolves, the winter, the fever. Without Croom, I would have died 100 times over. I reached out my hand. It looked at my palm. Slowly, carefully, it touched one finger to my palm. Connection. Trust. Spring came and I'd been gone almost a year. My hair was long and matted. I'd lost weight but was stronger than I'd ever been. Climbing, foraging, hiking for hours. My body had adapted. Croom had kept my pack safe. My GPS was dead, battery long gone. My notebook was filled with observations, scientific documentation of my captivity. Except it wasn't captivity anymore. It was something else. Partnership, maybe. Symbiosis. Croom was teaching me its world. How to read the forest. Which plants were safe. How to find water. Where to shelter in storms. How to move quietly. I was teaching it things too. My language, slowly. It could understand dozens of words now. Food, water, safe, danger, sleep, good, bad. We communicated in mixed signals. Its sounds, my words, hand gestures we'd developed together. I saw others that summer, others like Croom, just glimpses at first, shadows in the deep forest, massive shapes moving between trees, then closer. A female, smaller than Croom but still 7 feet tall. She watched me from a distance. Croom called to her. She called back. They had a conversation I couldn't understand. She approached slowly, sniffed me, made a sound that seemed approving. Croom rumbled back. Proud, I thought, showing me off. Over the next months, I met 4 more. 2 males, 2 females. They traveled in a loose group, came and went. Croom was part of this family, but lived apart, solitary by nature. They brought gifts sometimes, food, hides, interesting stones. They'd sit at a distance and watch me. I tried to communicate. They seemed amused. One of the females made sounds that I swear were laughter when I tried to mimic their calls. Year 2, I stopped counting days, stopped thinking about rescue. My family thought I was dead. The search would have ended after a few months. I was legally gone. The thought should have devastated me, but it didn't. I was alive. I was learning things no other human knew. I was living with creatures that shouldn't exist, but absolutely did. Part of me knew I had to get back eventually. Tell people, document this. The scientist in me was screaming, but the survivor in me said, wait, learn more, stay safe. Croom was teaching me to navigate. We'd go on long walks and it would point out landmarks, a lightning-struck tree, a rock formation shaped like a sleeping bear, a creek junction. It was showing me the territory, hundreds of square miles of wilderness that it knew intimately. I started understanding the mental map, how Croom thought about space, not coordinates, relationships. The berry patch is 3 valleys from the bee tree, 2 ridges past the salt lick. I saw Croom defend the territory once. Another male came through, bigger and aggressive. I heard them before I saw them, roaring that shook the air. Croom told me to hide. I climbed a tree, watched from above. They fought like nothing I'd ever seen. Not wild, flailing, strategic, powerful. The intruder was bigger, but Croom was smarter. Used the terrain, led him into thick brush, tangled him up, struck from angles. It lasted maybe 5 minutes. The intruder retreated. Croom didn't pursue, just stood there, breathing hard, bleeding from a gash on its shoulder. Victorious. I climbed down immediately. The wound was deep, running from shoulder to mid-bicep. Blood matted the hair around it. Croom made a dismissive sound, but I insisted. I'd watched it care for me. Now it was my turn. I led it back to the cave, gathered clean moss, soaked it in spring water. Croom sat still, trusting me. I found yarrow growing near the cave entrance, crushed the leaves into paste, applied it to the gash. Croom flinched but didn't pull away. I bound it with strips of hide. Crude, but it would work. The wound healed over 3 weeks. I changed the dressing daily. Croom let me, patient as stone. During that time, it couldn't forage as far. We relied more on stored food, dried berries, smoked fish that the family group brought, roots kept in a cool part of the cave. I hadn't realized how much Croom had been stockpiling, planning ahead, preparing for injury or illness. Intelligence again. Always intelligence. While it healed, Croom taught me more language. We'd sit in the cave during rain, and it would point to things, make sounds. I'd repeat, tree, water, sky, fire. It knew the word fire, even though I'd never seen it make flame. Made me wonder what else it knew about human things. Had it watched people before, observed from a distance, learned our words from listening to hikers and campers? I asked, but the question was too complex. Beyond our shared vocabulary, I started teaching it to count. Used stones, 1 stone, 1 sound, 2 stones, different sound. Croom caught on fast, could count to 10 within days, started using numbers without prompting. 3 deer in the valley, 4 days until the moon is full. It was tracking time, seasons, lunar phases. I was living with something that had its own calendar. Year 3 started with an early spring. Snow melted in March instead of April. Flowers came early. Croom seemed restless. The family group visited more frequently. There were gatherings I wasn't invited to. They'd meet in a clearing about a mile from the cave, and Croom would tell me to stay behind. I'd watch from a distance, 6 or 7 of them sitting in a circle, making sounds too complex for me to pass. Conversation, debate maybe, decision-making. They had society, structure, rules I'd never understand. One of the younger females started visiting me alone, smaller than the others, maybe adolescent. She was curious, wanted to touch my hair, my clothes. I let her, showed her my notebook. She was fascinated by writing, watched me draw letters, tried to mimic them in the dirt. Failed, but kept trying. I felt like Jane Goodall in reverse. The young female brought me a gift one day, a flower, trillium, white and perfect. She handed it to me carefully, made a soft sound. I thanked her. She touched my face gently, then ran off. Croom had watched the whole exchange, made an approving rumble. I wondered if it had asked her to befriend me, to help socialize me into their world, or if she'd decided on her own. Either way, I had a friend besides Croom now. Summer of year 3. I realized I'd stopped thinking about going back. Not because I'd given up, but because I'd adapted. This was my life now. I knew the forest the way Croom knew it, could identify 100 edible plants, knew where the clean water sources were, could read weather in the clouds and animal behavior, could move quietly enough to get within 20 feet of a deer. I'd become wild. Part of me loved it. Part of me was terrified of what I was losing. My humanity, maybe, or my civilization. The line between the two felt blurry now. I thought about my family sometimes. My mother, who'd never understood why I wanted to study mushrooms instead of getting married and having kids. My father, who'd been proud of my doctorate, but worried about me living alone in the forest. My younger brother, who thought I was crazy but loved me anyway. They'd mourned me, probably had a funeral, divided my possessions, moved on with their lives. The Sarah they knew was dead. The Sarah sitting in a cave, wearing deer hide, communicating with Bigfoot, she was someone else entirely. Croom found me crying one afternoon, asked what was wrong in our limited language. I tried to explain. Family, miss, gone. It listened, then made a sound I'd learned meant follow, led me to a high ridge overlooking the valley. We sat there together as the sun set. It didn't try to fix my sadness, just sat with me. Presence, companionship. Sometimes that's all you need. The family group had a celebration that fall. I don't know what they were celebrating. Harvest, maybe? Successful summer. They gathered in the clearing with food, so much food. Berries, nuts, roots, mushrooms, fish, even honey still in the comb. They made sounds together, not quite singing, but rhythmic, musical. They invited me this time. Croom brought me to the circle. The others made space. I sat. They offered me food. I ate. We made sounds together. I was part of something. A family that wasn't human, but was family nonetheless. That night, lying in the cave, I made a decision. I would stay. Not forever, but for now. I would learn everything I could, document it mentally, since my notebook was full and I had no more paper. Someday I'd get back. Someday I'd tell people. But not yet. I wasn't ready. They weren't ready. This was too important to rush. Winter 3 was harder, colder than the previous 2. Snow drifts blocked the cave entrance for days. Croom and I were trapped inside, living on stored food, melting snow for water. We told each other stories. I spoke in English, narrating my childhood, my education, my research. Croom made sounds that seemed like stories. I didn't understand the details, but I caught the emotions. There was a sad story, a happy story, a scary story. We connected through narrative the way humans have forever. Stories make us who we are. Even Bigfoot knew that. The young female I'd befriended died that winter. I don't know how. She didn't come around anymore, and when I asked Croom, it made a sound of grief. Deep, mournful. The family group gathered. They mourned together, made sounds of sadness that carried through the forest. I mourned with them, cried for a creature I'd barely known but who'd shown me kindness. Croom sat close to me that night, sharing grief, understanding loss. Spring came again, year 3 turning to year 4. I was 32 years old. I'd been gone almost 3 years. My hair hung to my waist now, braided to keep it manageable. My body was lean and strong. My hands were calloused, my feet tough. I could hike 20 miles without tiring, could climb trees like I'd done it all my life, could identify animal tracks, read scat, find food in places that looked barren. I was alive in a way I'd never been in civilization. But something was changing. Croom was changing. More restless, more distant. It would leave for longer periods, come back distracted. I asked what was wrong. It made sounds I couldn't interpret. Confusion, maybe. Conflict. Then one morning, it led me on a long walk. Longer than usual. We hiked for hours, heading in a direction we'd never gone. My heart started pounding. I knew what this was. It was showing me the way out. We reached a ridge, and I could see it in the distance. Civilization. A road cutting through the forest. Power lines. A cell tower on a far mountain. Croom pointed. Made a sound. You can go. I stood there, staring at that road. Freedom. Rescue. My old life. I could walk to that road, flag down a car, go home. But I looked at Croom. This creature that had saved me, protected me, taught me, befriended me. I wasn't ready. I shook my head. Not yet. Croom rumbled. Understanding. We walked back to the cave, but I knew it was coming. The end of this chapter. Croom was preparing me, teaching me the way out. Why now, I didn't know. Maybe it sensed danger. Maybe the family group was moving territory. Maybe it was sick. I couldn't tell. But the lessons intensified. Navigation, survival, what to do if I was alone. Croom was planning for my departure, whether I wanted it or not. Then came the day everything changed. Late winter, year 4. February, I think. Maybe early March. Croom and I were gathering firewood when we heard it. Helicopter, distant but getting closer. Search and rescue, flying a grid pattern, looking for someone, maybe not me. 3.5 years later, they wouldn't still be searching for me. Someone else was lost. Croom heard it and grabbed my arm, pulled me toward the cave. No, I pulled back. I need to see. Croom made the danger sound. Urgent. Please. But I was already running toward the ridge. I saw the helicopter pass over. Bright orange, official markings. It circled an area maybe 2 miles south. Someone was down there. Lost. Maybe hurt. I could help. I could flag them down, lead them to whoever they were looking for. I could go home. Croom caught up to me, blocked my path. I pushed past. It grabbed me, not roughly but firmly. I struggled. We'd never fought before. Not like this. I was screaming. Croom was making distressed sounds. I broke free, ran. It chased me, caught me again. We were both crying now. Yes, crying. It had tears in its eyes. I stopped fighting, looked at this creature who'd become my whole world. I understand, I said. You saved me. I have to go. Croom made a sound of pain, held me close. I held it back. We stayed like that while the helicopter circled. Then Croom let go, stepped back, pointed toward the sound, made a soft rumble. Goodbye. I was sobbing. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I touched its face one last time. Then I ran. I ran toward the helicopter sound, screaming, waving. They didn't see me. I ran harder, tripped on a root, fell down a small embankment, hit my head. Not bad, but enough to daze me. I lay there, stunned, watching the helicopter fly away. I'd missed my chance. I tried to stand, fell again. Exhausted, overwhelmed. I curled up in the ferns and passed out. When I woke up, I was moving, being carried. I thought Croom had come back, but it wasn't Croom. It was one of the males from the family group. Larger, older. He was carrying me carefully, urgently. I tried to ask where we were going, but he just kept moving. Hours passed. The forest changed. We were heading towards civilization. The male set me down near a trail, a real hiking trail with markers. He made a sound. Firm. Stay. Then he was gone. I sat on that trail for hours. The sun moved across the sky. My body ached from the fall, from the running, from 3.5 years of wilderness living. I kept expecting the male to come back, or Croom, someone. But the forest stayed silent, just wind in the trees and bird song. Normal sounds, civilization sounds almost. The trail looked recently maintained. Fresh wood chips, clear markers. People came through here regularly. I just had to wait. Around 4 in the afternoon, I heard voices, hikers, a couple, maybe in their 50s, wearing expensive outdoor gear. They came around the bend and stopped dead when they saw me. The woman gasped. The man pulled out his phone immediately. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't work. Just a croak. I'd been living with creatures who communicated in rumbles and grunts. Human speech felt foreign in my mouth. The woman approached slowly, like I might bolt. Are you okay? Do you need help? I nodded, tried to say yes. Nothing came out. The man was already calling 911, giving their GPS coordinates, describing me. Female, early 30s, looks disoriented, possible hypothermia exposure victim. He was wrong about the hypothermia, but I couldn't correct him. The woman wrapped me in her jacket, asked my name. I opened my mouth. Sarah. But the sound didn't come. My brain knew the word. My mouth wouldn't form it. She held my hand. "It's okay," she said. "Help is coming. You're safe now. Safe." The word felt strange. I'd been safe for 3 years, just not in a way she'd understand. The rescue team arrived in 40 minutes. Paramedics, a sheriff's deputy, search and rescue volunteers. They'd been looking for a different missing person, a teenage boy who'd wandered off from a campsite 2 days earlier. They found him that morning, safe. Now they'd found me. Unexpected bonus. The lead paramedic, a woman with kind eyes and steady hands, did a quick assessment. Pupils reactive, pulse strong, no obvious injuries except the fresh bump on my head and the older scar from the boulder. She asked me questions. "Can you tell me your name? Where do you live? What year is it?" I stared at her, knew all the answers, couldn't speak. They loaded me onto a stretcher. The deputy was taking photos of where I'd been found, the condition of my clothes. I was wearing a deer-hide tunic, badly stitched but functional. Moccasins that Croom had made. My hair was braided with plant fibers woven through it. I looked like I'd stepped out of a historical reenactment or a cult. The deputy asked if anyone had hurt me. I shook my head hard. No, definitely not. He didn't look convinced. The helicopter ride to the hospital was short. I'd never been in a helicopter before. The noise was overwhelming. I pressed my hands over my ears. The paramedic thought I was in pain, gave me an IV, started fluids, talked to me in a calm, constant stream. "You're going to be fine. We're taking you to Valley Memorial. It's a good hospital. Your family will be so happy. Do you have family? Can you nod if you have family?" I nodded, thought about my mother's face, my father, my brother. What would I even say to them? The hospital was chaos. Doctors, nurses, social workers, police. Everyone had questions. Everyone wanted to examine me, document me, understand me. I still couldn't speak, tried repeatedly. The words were there, trapped behind some barrier my brain had built. A neurologist was called. She did tests, checked for stroke, for brain injury, for physical damage to my vocal cords. Everything was fine. Psychogenic aphasia, she said. Trauma-induced. It happens. Give her time. The police weren't happy about that. They wanted answers. Where had I been? Who took me? Was I held against my will? They identified me through fingerprints. Sarah Elizabeth Cartwright, missing since June 14th, 2006. Presumed dead after 18 months of searching. My parents had been notified of bodies before. False alarms. Jane. Does that weren't me? They'd stopped hoping after the 2nd year. Now they were being told I was alive. Found. In impossible condition for someone who'd survived 3 winters in the wilderness alone. Because the authorities assumed I was alone. The alternative was too strange to consider. My parents arrived the next morning. I was in a private room, hooked to monitors, under observation. A deputy was stationed outside my door in case whoever took me came back. When my mother walked in, I started crying. She ran to me, held me. I held her back. She smelled like her lavender lotion, like home. She was crying too, saying my name over and over. Sarah, Sarah, my baby. I tried to respond, managed a sound. Mom. Barely a whisper, but it was something. My voice was coming back. My father stood at the door, crying silently. He'd aged a decade in 3 years. Grey hair, deeper lines. He looked broken. I reached for him. He came, held my hand, squeezed too tight. I didn't mind. My brother showed up an hour later. He looked angry. "Where were you?" The first thing he said. Not "I'm glad you're safe." "Where the hell were you?" I couldn't answer. Still couldn't form full sentences. He softened when he saw my face, hugged me. I'm sorry. We thought you were dead." By day 3, I could speak in short phrases. Yes. No, I don't know. I'm okay. The police interviewed me formally. A detective named Martinez, experienced and patient. She asked careful questions. Let's start simple. Do you remember disappearing? Yes. Were you taken by someone? I hesitated. Yes. Did they hurt you? No. Did they keep you locked up? No. Were you free to leave? This was the hard one. I thought about Croom blocking the cave entrance, but also about Croom showing me the road, teaching me to survive, saving my life. I don't know, I said finally. It's complicated. Detective Martinez wrote that down. Everything about me was complicated. The media found out by day 4, missing woman. Found after 3 years, miracle survival, the mystery of Sarah Cartwright. News vans parked outside the hospital. Reporters tried to bribe staff for information. My family hired a lawyer, put out a statement asking for privacy. I was recovering. I would tell my story when I was ready. But I knew I'd never tell the real story. Who would believe me? I could barely believe it myself, and I'd lived it. The medical team was baffled. I should have been malnourished. I wasn't. My weight was low but healthy. Muscle tone excellent. Cardiovascular fitness above average. My teeth were clean. Someone had been feeding me, caring for me. The dermatologist noted my skin showed signs of regular washing. My hair had been regularly braided. My feet showed evidence of consistent footwear, crude but protective. Most puzzling, I had no signs of sexual assault, no signs of physical abuse, no signs of restraint injuries. The physical therapist who examined my range of motion said I moved like an athlete, like someone who'd been climbing and hiking daily for years. My bone density was better than when I'd disappeared. I'd been kept by someone who took remarkably good care of me, fed me, sheltered me, protected me, exercised me, and then let me go. A forensics team examined my clothing. The deer-hide tunic was hand-sewn with plant fiber thread. The stitching was crude but effective, waterproof. The moccasins were more sophisticated, perfectly fitted, tanned hide with the hair left on for warmth. Braided cordage that showed understanding of tension and durability. A craftsperson had made these, someone with significant skill and knowledge. The braiding in my hair contained plant species native to old-growth forest. Specific elevations, they were narrowing down my location. I started panicking. They were getting too close. I told them I'd been moved multiple times, different locations. I didn't know where. That slowed them down, made the search area impossibly large. The FBI brought in behavioral analysts. They built a profile of my captor based on my condition and my evasiveness. Likely male, probably middle-aged or older, given the skill level. Lived off-grid, possibly for decades. Survivalist mindset, non-violent, possibly mentally ill in a benign way. Delusional, maybe. Believed he was protecting me. The profile was completely wrong, but also close enough to be dangerous. They were describing a human who matched Croom's actions, if not Croom's nature. The FBI got involved. Missing persons case this high profile, they wanted answers. An agent named Chen interviewed me. Older woman, sharp eyes, no nonsense. She'd worked kidnapping cases for 20 years, seen everything. She asked about my captor. What did they look like? I said I didn't want to talk about it. She pushed. Was it one person or multiple? Multiple. Were they male or female? Male. Did they speak English? No. What language did they speak? None I recognized. She leaned back. This is important, Sarah. We need to find these people. They could have other victims. I met her eyes. They don't, I said. I'm sure of it. Agent Chen tried different angles. Where were you kept? A cave. Can you describe the location? No. Why not? I don't know where it was. I was unconscious when I was taken there. She didn't believe that. I could tell. But it was partly true. I didn't know the exact coordinates. The forest all looked the same. Croom had never let me have my GPS, and even if I could find the cave, I wouldn't. Some things needed to stay hidden. Some mysteries needed to stay mysteries. They wanted me to work with a sketch artist. Describe my captors. I refused, said I couldn't remember faces clearly. Trauma, I told them. My therapist backed me up. Dr. Reeves, assigned to me by the hospital, specialized in PTSD and trauma recovery. She was good at her job, recognized immediately I was protecting someone or something. Didn't push, just created space for me to talk when I was ready. I never was, but we talked about other things: reintegration, culture shock, survivor's guilt, identity reconstruction, all real issues I was facing. In our third session, Dr. Reeves asked me what I missed most about my captivity. Strange question, I thought about it carefully. The silence, I said finally. The simplicity, knowing exactly what each day would bring. Wake up, forage, learn, survive, sleep. No decisions beyond immediate needs, no obligations, no expectations. She nodded. A lot of trauma survivors report missing the clarity of crisis. When you're in survival mode, everything else falls away. You know exactly what matters: food, water, shelter, safety. Coming back to civilization means drowning in choices that feel meaningless by comparison. She understood. That helped. But there was more I couldn't tell her. I missed Croom's presence, the security of that massive form sitting across the cave, the sound of its breathing at night, the gentle rumble when it approved of something I'd done. I missed being part of the family group, being accepted despite being so different. I missed the young female's curiosity, missed the celebrations, missed belonging to something ancient and wild and more authentic than anything civilization offered. How do you tell a therapist you miss being adopted by Bigfoot? You don't. You just say you miss the wilderness. She assumed I meant the trees. Close enough. Culture shock was intense. The hospital room had too many lights, too much noise. Machines beeping, intercoms crackling, people constantly coming and going. I couldn't sleep. I'd gotten used to cave silence, forest sounds, Croom's breathing. Here, everything was overstimulating. They gave me medication for anxiety. It helped a little, but what I really needed was darkness and quiet and space. Dr. Reeves arranged for me to spend time in the hospital garden. That helped more than any medication. Dirt under my feet, plants around me, sky above. I could breathe there. The hospital nutritionist was concerned about my diet. I was eating very selectively. No processed foods, no sugar, no dairy. I'd been living on wild foods for 3 years. My digestive system had adapted. She created a meal plan. Whole grains, lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, simple foods. It worked better. But I still craved things the hospital couldn't provide. Fresh spring water, wild berries, mushrooms I'd foraged myself, roots pulled from rich forest soil, foods that tasted like the earth they came from. Hospital food was sterile, dead. I ate it because I had to, but it didn't nourish me the way Croom's food had. Physical therapy wasn't about strength. I was stronger than most of the staff. It was about conformity, relearning to move in civilized ways. Don't crouch, sit in chairs. Don't eat with your hands, use utensils. Don't walk barefoot, wear shoes. Don't climb on furniture, use it properly. Every session felt like being trained to be less capable. In the forest, I could climb a tree, cross a river on logs, navigate by stars. Here, I was supposed to shuffle from chair to chair and call it progress. The therapist meant well. She didn't understand she was teaching me to be weak again. I was discharged after 2 weeks. My parents took me to their house, my childhood home. Everything looked smaller. The rooms felt cramped, the ceiling too low. I kept going outside, sitting in the backyard, breathing. My mother worried, made my favorite foods from before. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, apple pie. Rich, heavy foods that my body rejected violently. I couldn't eat much. The flavors were overwhelming, the textures wrong. I wanted berries, roots, simple foods my stomach remembered. She cried when I pushed away her pot roast. Thought I was rejecting her love. I tried to explain. My stomach needs time to adjust. 3 years of wild food. Give me time. She accepted that. Started bringing me salads instead. Plain rice, steamed vegetables, simple broths. I ate those. Slowly rebuilt tolerance. My father tried to help differently. Brought me books, documentaries, news magazines, trying to catch me up on 3 years of world events. Wars, elections, technology advances, celebrity gossip. I couldn't care. None of it mattered. While people were arguing about politics and pop culture, I'd been learning to survive. Learning real things, useful things. What heals wounds, what prevents infection, how to find water in drought, how to read animal behavior, how to communicate across species barriers. That knowledge felt more valuable than anything in those magazines. But I couldn't say that, so I smiled and thanked him and pretended to read. My brother visited every few days, brought his kids, my niece and nephew I'd never met, 3 years old and 6 months old, born while I was gone. They were shy around me at first. I looked strange, smelled strange, moved strange. But kids adapt faster than adults. Within weeks, they were climbing on me, asking me to play. I taught them things without thinking, how to identify birds by their calls, which plants were safe to touch, how to move quietly through the yard without scaring wildlife. My brother watched with an expression I couldn't read. Pride, maybe, or worry, probably both. His kids were learning from their aunt who'd been raised by monsters. He didn't say it, but I saw it in his eyes. Nights were the worst. I'd wake up panicking, reaching for croom, finding empty air. The nightmares weren't about being taken. They were about being left, about that moment on the ridge when croom let me go, about watching it walk away, about being alone in a world of humans when I belonged with creatures who weren't. I'd cry silently so I wouldn't wake my parents, but my mother heard anyway. Came to my room one night, held me while I sobbed. She thought I was processing trauma. She was right, just not the trauma she imagined. I wasn't traumatized by my captivity. I was traumatized by my rescue. 3 months after my rescue, the FBI closed the case. Insufficient evidence, no suspects, no leads. The official conclusion was I'd been held by an isolated group, possibly survivalists or a fringe religious sect, who'd kept me in primitive conditions but without malice. When I'd fallen during the helicopter incident, they'd realized the danger and released me near a trail. Mystery solved, sort of. The media lost interest. I was yesterday's news. Someone else's miracle story replaced mine. I was relieved. I tried to return to my old life, looked at my research, the fungal network study, my field notes from before. It all seemed pointless now. Who cared about mycorrhizal relationships when there were creatures in the forest that science didn't acknowledge? I'd seen things no biologist had documented, learned things no academic paper could capture. But I couldn't publish, couldn't share, couldn't prove. I was sitting on the most important biological discovery in human history, and I'd never be able to tell anyone. I went back to the university, met with my advisor. He was thrilled I was alive, wanted me to complete my research, finish my doctorate. I tried, sat in the lab, looked at slides of soil samples, felt nothing. The forest I'd studied was just trees and dirt now. The real forest, the one with Croom and the family group, that was alive. That mattered. This was just academic exercise. I dropped out quietly. My advisor was disappointed but understanding. Trauma changes people. I needed time. Maybe someday I'd return. I knew I wouldn't. I got a job at a garden center, minimum wage, simple work, watering plants, helping customers, no thinking required. My co-workers were kind, didn't ask too many questions, knew I'd been through something, left me alone. I liked the plants, reminded me of foraging with Croom, identifying edible species, learning which ones healed, which ones nourished. I'd suggest plants to customers based on what Croom had taught me. They thought I was just knowledgeable. I was, just not from books. A year after my rescue, I moved out of my parents' house. Got a small apartment near the foothills, close to wilderness but not in it. I hiked every weekend, alone, followed trails deep into the forest. Part of me was looking, hoping to see a shadow between trees, a massive shape, amber eyes watching. I never did. Croom was too smart for that. The family group had probably moved territory, gone deeper, safer, away from the helicopter routes and the hiking trails, away from me. I started writing it down, not for publication, for myself. Every detail I could remember, the cave, the food, the communication, the family group, the young female who died, the territory fight, the stories we told each other, the goodbye, all of it. I filled notebooks, kept them hidden. Sometimes I'd read them and cry. Sometimes I'd read them and smile. It had been real. It had happened. No matter what anyone else believed, I knew the truth. 2 years after my rescue, I was hiking a familiar trail, deep forest, rarely traveled. I found something that stopped my heart. A pile of stones, deliberately stacked, not natural. Beside it, fresh fiddlehead ferns, still edible, arranged carefully. I looked around, saw nothing, but I knew Croom had been here, recently, leaving a sign, telling me it remembered. I sat by the stones and cried, left something in return, a small carving I'd made from wood, a rough shape of 2 figures sitting together, human and not human, friends. I visited that spot every month. Sometimes there were new signs, berries in winter when there shouldn't be berries, meaning Croom had stored them, brought them, a feather from a bird I'd mentioned liking, a smooth stone shaped like a heart, or close enough. We couldn't speak anymore, couldn't sit together, but we could remember. We could honor what we'd shared. I left things too, drawings, small gifts, proof I was okay, proof I remembered, proof I was grateful. 3 years after my rescue, I testified before a closed congressional hearing. Someone high up had seen the FBI report, asked questions, wanted more details. I told them a version of the truth. There were unidentified creatures in the forests, intelligent, peaceful, endangered. They needed protection, not study, not capture, protection. I couldn't prove they existed. I wouldn't lead anyone to them, but I swore they were real. The committee was skeptical, but they thanked me for my time, filed my testimony as classified. I'd done what I could. The rest was up to Croom and the family to stay hidden. I met someone eventually, a park ranger named Tom. Quiet, kind, understood the wilderness, didn't push me for my story, accepted my silence. We met at the garden center. He was buying native plants for a restoration project, started asking me questions about species. I knew answers he couldn't find in books. Which plants grew best at which elevations? Which ones deer avoided? Which ones attracted beneficial insects? He asked how I knew. I said I'd spent time in the forest, a lot of time. He smiled, seemed to understand there was more to that story. Didn't press. We started hiking together. He showed me parts of the forest even I hadn't seen. Higher elevations, alpine meadows, places Croom's territory hadn't reached. I showed him things too. Tracks he couldn't identify, scat from animals he didn't recognize. He'd pull out his field guide, try to match them, never could. Some things aren't in the books, I'd say. He'd look at me with this expression, curiosity and respect mixed together. Started to trust that I knew things he didn't. That was rare. Most people assume their education makes them smarter than experience. Tom knew better. 6 months into our friendship, we were camping in the backcountry, sitting by a fire, watching stars. He asked the question I'd been waiting for. What really happened to you out there? I thought about lying, thought about the story I'd told everyone else. But Tom deserved better. He'd been patient, kind, honest with me. I owed him honesty back, or as much as I could give. I told him I'd been cared for by someone not human. I didn't say Bigfoot, didn't name it, just said I'd lived with beings who weren't recognized by science, who showed me kindness I'd never known, who taught me things I'd never forget, who let me go when they could have kept me forever. He was quiet for a long time. I waited for him to laugh, to call me crazy, to stand up and leave. Instead, he said, "I believe you." Those 3 words. I started crying. He moved closer, held me. "I've seen things too," he said. "Things that don't make sense, things I can't explain. This forest is older and stranger than we admit. If it taught you something important, I'm glad. And I'm glad you made it back. I'm glad I met you." That night, I fell in love with him. Not because he believed me, because he believed me and it didn't change how he saw me. I was still Sarah, just Sarah who'd been adopted by the wilderness and returned changed. We fell in love slowly after that, built trust. He asked about my time in the forest sometimes. I told him pieces, never everything, never Croom's name or the exact location or the family group's structure. But enough that he understood my heart was divided. Part of me was here with him. Part of me was still in that cave, still sitting beside a creature that shouldn't exist, still learning to count with stones and communicate with sounds and trust in kindness that transcended words. He accepted that, said everyone carries their past. Mine was just more unusual than most. We got married 5 years after my rescue. Small ceremony. My family, his family, a few friends. We honeymooned by backpacking through the Cascades. Different range than where I'd been kept, but similar. Tom noticed I navigated differently than other hikers. Read the forest instead of the map. Found food and water by instinct. He asked where I'd learned. I smiled, told him I'd had a good teacher once. He squeezed my hand. Didn't ask more. I think about Croom every day. Wonder if it thinks about me, if the family group remembers the strange human who lived with them, if they tell stories about me the way I tell stories about them, if the young who were born after I left hear tales of Sarah who couldn't speak their language but tried, who learned their ways, who was protected and loved and ultimately freed. I hope they do. I hope I'm part of their history the way they're part of mine. Sometimes late at night, when Tom is asleep and the world is quiet, I sit by the window and look toward the mountains. I make the sound Croom taught me, that low rumble. Croom, soft enough not to wake anyone, loud enough to honor memory. And sometimes, I swear I hear it back. Distant, carried on wind, could be imagination, could be wishful thinking. But I choose to believe. I choose to think Croom is out there, safe, remembering me the way I remember it. Two souls who met impossibly, connected profoundly, and carried each other forward into separate lives made richer by having touched. The authorities never found where I'd been kept. The cave stayed hidden. The family group stayed safe. I kept my promise, protected them the way they'd protected me. Some mysteries don't need solving. Some truths don't need proving. Some connections transcend species and logic and everything we think we understand about the world. I was lost and I was found, but not in the way anyone thinks. I was found by something most people don't believe exists. Sheltered by kindness I didn't know was possible, and ultimately given the greatest gift, the choice to return, the freedom to choose my own path. Croom could have kept me forever. Instead, it let me go. That's love, real love, not possession, not control. The willingness to release what you care about so it can thrive. Croom loved me enough to teach me to survive, to show me the world through new eyes, and then to let me return to my own kind. That's more humanity than most humans show, more wisdom than most wise people possess. I was saved by a monster that turned out to be more human than any human I'd known. And I spent the rest of my life trying to deserve that gift. My grandfather used to tell me a story when I was young, a Cherokee tale about two wolves. One wolf is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other wolf is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The two wolves are always fighting inside us. I asked him which wolf wins. He said the one you feed. I thought I understood that story, but I didn't, not until Croom. Croom taught me which wolf to feed, not through words, through action, through choosing compassion over fear, protection over harm, patience over frustration, trust over suspicion. Every day in that cave, every moment in that forest, Croom was feeding the better wolf, showing me what it meant to choose kindness, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I was terrified, injured, lost. Croom could have abandoned me, could have seen me as threat or burden. Instead, it saw me as someone worth saving, worth teaching, worth loving. That changed everything. Now I try to feed the same wolf Croom fed. When customers at the garden center are rude, I choose patience. When hikers trash the forest, I choose education over anger. When people dismiss my experience, I choose understanding over resentment. It's not always easy. The other wolf is hungry too. But I remember Croom. Remember those amber eyes watching me with such profound kindness. Remember the gentle touch of those massive hands. Remember the sound of that rumble that meant you're safe. And I choose to honor that memory by being better, by feeding the wolf that would make Croom proud. That's what I learned in 3 years of captivity that wasn't captivity. 3 years of being lost that was actually being found. 3 years with a creature that shouldn't exist, but showed me what it means to exist with purpose. We spend so much time defining ourselves by what we are. Human, civilized, superior. But Croom taught me that what matters is how we are, how we treat those who are vulnerable, how we respond when we have power over others, how we choose compassion even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. That's the measure of a soul. And by that measure, Croom had the most beautiful soul I've ever encountered. So when people ask me what happened during those 3 years, I tell them I survived. When they ask how, I say I was protected. When they ask by whom, I smile and say by someone who taught me what it means to be truly human. They think I'm being metaphorical. I'm not. I'm being more literal than they could ever understand. Somewhere in those mountains, there are creatures that embody the best of what we could be. And for 3 impossible years, I was honored to be family. That's my truth. That's my story. And that's the gift I carry forward every single day. Thank you for listening to Sarah's story. Sometimes the most profound truths are the ones we can't prove, and the most important teachers are the ones the world doesn't believe in. If this story touched you, remember to feed the right wolf. Choose kindness, choose compassion, choose to protect rather than harm. And maybe, just maybe, keep your eyes open in the deep forest. You never know what miracles might be waiting there. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more incredible tales that remind us the world is stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined. The end.